A red cross painted on your door didn't mean medicine was inside. It meant you were already dead. Welcome to London, 1665. You are trapped. The rich have abandoned you. And this is what it takes to survive the deadliest summer in human history. You stand in the muddy parish of St. Giles in the Fields. Early April brings an unnatural warmth, and the thick air hangs still. Rotting cabbage, butcher's offal, and open sewage choke your lungs while the Thames flows nearby, reduced to a ribbon of brown sludge. London is a crumbling tinderbox. Wooden houses lean precariously over narrow dirt streets. Their upper floors jut out so far they nearly touch the buildings across the alley, plunging the damp cobblestones into perpetual twilight. You share a cramped room with 9 desperate people. The floorboards are slick with decades of grime. Black rats scurry over the rafters and chew through your meager grain sacks. A constant scratching that every Londoner has learnt to ignore. You only notice the stagnant air pressing against your face. That is your first fatal mistake. You don't realize the executioner is already in the room. Soon, whispers trickle in from the eastern docks. A young sailor collapsed on the wharves, coughing blood. A wealthy merchant died sweating in his feather bed. The local parish clerks wave these stories off. They blame the bad air, the unseasonable heat, and the diets of the working class. They refuse to admit the truth. Then, the searchers arrive in your neighborhood. These are elderly women from the local parish, paid a miserable pittance to examine the dead. Shunned by society, they are untouchable. You watch them enter a leaning house down your street. The alley goes dead silent. An hour later, they emerge. Their faces are grim, their eyes hollow. In their hands they carry long white wands. This wand is the legally mandated signal of a confirmed plague death. Panic rips through the tavern like a musket shot. The invisible assassin has breached the parish lines. Your instinct is to run. You pack a small canvas bag, aiming for the open countryside. But the dirt roads out of London are choked. The wealthy are already fleeing. King Charles II packs his royal court, vanishing from Hampton Court to Salisbury, then Oxford. Rich merchants hire private guards, load their carriages, and lock their grand estates, leaving the city to rot. The clergy abandon their pulpits. The lawyers flee the courts. You have no horse. You have no country estate waiting. You have no silver coins to purchase the absurdly expensive travel passes. And the local magistrates, barricaded in their homes, refuse to issue health certificates. The military guards the outward roads, turning back anyone dressed in rags. You are hopelessly trapped. The rich have walled you into a massive, infected prison. By June, the Lord Mayor issues a brutal containment policy. It is a death sentence masquerading as public health. If one person falls ill, their entire household is sealed. The healthy and the sick locked inside together in a suffocating box. The city sacrifices the few to save the many. You watch as a magistrate approaches your neighbor's house. A painter steps forward with a heavy bucket. He slathers a massive red cross on the timber door. Above it, he paints the chilling words, "Lord, have mercy upon us." A carpenter follows. You hear the deafening thud of an iron hammer driving nails through the wood. The door is barricaded shut from the outside. The trapped family screams from the upper window, begging for their lives. A burly watchman stands below on the cobblestones. He clutches a sharp halberd. He does not flinch. He does not look up. He isn't protecting the streets from the sickness. His singular job is to make sure you die in your own bed. But corruption runs deep. Wealthy citizens bribe these watchmen with silver coins. They slip out back doors in the night, stepping over the bodies of sick servants left behind to rot. You do not have the silver to buy your life. So you sit in your room, listening to the desperate breathing next door slowly stop. Doomed families are imprisoned for 40 straight days. Years later, the deepest scratch marks will be found clawed into the inside of the wooden doors. You hear violent coughing through the thin plaster walls. You hear the unending cries of hungry children. A woven basket is lowered from their window on a rope. A father begs the watchman for bread. The watchman just stares at the empty basket. The local parish has run out of relief money. There is nothing left to give. Many locked-in victims do not die of the disease at all. They die of agonizing starvation in the dark. They die of overwhelming despair. The silence that follows the crying is the heaviest sound you will ever hear. Eventually, you watch the empty basket stop lowering entirely. When the watchman unseals the rotting house 40 days later, every family member is dead. Now the true horror of the sickness takes hold. The dreaded tokens appear on the victims. Massively swollen, hard lymph nodes erupting on the neck and groin. They swell to the size of apples, turning pitch black like rotting fruit. The pressure causes mind-shattering agony. Victims scream until their vocal cords tear. This is followed by raging fevers, intense vomiting, and dark blotches breaking out across their skin. Death comes within 3 feverish days. Some victims go completely mad from the pain, throwing themselves from upper windows just to end it. The city rapidly empties. Thick green grass grows wild in London's busiest intersections. Taverns are boarded up. The Royal Exchange is abandoned. With trade halted, you lose your job at the tannery. The urban economy collapses overnight, forcing you to hoard whatever dried oats you can hide. Desperation breeds madness. The Lord Mayor orders the mass slaughter of dogs and cats, blindly believing the animals are spreading the miasma. Over 40,000 dogs and 200,000 cats are brutally killed. Without predators, the true carriers, the black rats, multiply into an unstoppable army. Official doctors walk the alleys, but they don't wear the famous Italian bird beaks. Those are foreign inventions unseen in London. Instead, English doctors wear heavy leather coats to their ankles, pressing wax pomanders filled with sweet spices to their noses. They tragically believe floral scents purify the corrupt air. You scratch a raised red bite on your ankle, praying to God it is just an itch. You constantly smoke harsh tobacco, hoping the thick smoke coats your vulnerable lungs. Even young children are forced to sit in taverns and smoke clay pipes until they vomit. It does absolutely nothing. August brings a suffocating wave of intense heat. The air feels heavy with doom. You spend a penny on a printed broadsheet, the weekly bill of mortality. The fragile paper is bordered with woodcuts of skulls and crossed bones. You trace the grim numbers with a trembling finger. June, a few hundred dead. July, 2,000. Now, the paper screams 7,000 dead in a single week. But the actual death toll is undoubtedly higher. Parish clerks are too terrified to count accurately. Entire slum alleys are wiped out without a record. Traditional churchyards overflow rapidly, the sacred soil literally rising from the sheer volume of buried corpses. The smell of decay blankets the city in an invisible fog. Desperate magistrates order massive new pits dug in the northern fields of Finsbury. These pits are monstrous 40 feet long, and 20 feet deep. A gaping scar in the earth, dug not to honor the dead, but to hide the monumental scale of the government's failure. The dark nights belong to the death carts. Their heavy wooden wheels rattle relentlessly over the uneven cobblestones, groaning under the weight of piled bodies. The exhausted driver rings a heavy iron bell, shouting the exact same chilling phrase into the dark every night. Bring out your dead. You help a surviving neighbor carry a rigid corpse downstairs, tossing it onto the tangled pile in the cart. The driver, smoking a thick cigar to numb his nose to the stench, doesn't even look at you. Bodies are dumped into massive pits, layered like cut firewood, and barely covered with dirt. The rich and the poor finally rot together in the exact same unmarked mud. Gravediggers work brutal 12-hour shifts, drinking cheap gin to numb the trauma. Some contract the sickness and die in the holes they just dug. The terrifying silence of the daytime is so much worse. The church bells have completely stopped ringing. There are simply too many dead to toll for. You hide in your locked room, count your dwindling oats, and wait. Finally, autumn arrives. The stifling air cools in late September, and the daily horror gradually lifts. You survived the terrifying 40 days of locked doors. You survived the starvation, the false cures, and the death carts. 100,000 others did not. Nearly a quarter of the entire population is gone, leaving the bustling capital a silent, traumatized ghost town. The streets are nothing but hollow echoes and vacant windows staring into the cold wind. But the physical danger is not over yet. Your bone-dry, overcrowded wooden city is perfectly primed for a massive, unstoppable inferno. Next year, a single stray spark on Pudding Lane will quickly finish exactly what the sickness started. But that is a horrific story entirely for the next tape.